What's going on, TLC? Pastor Vernon here. It is my prayer that you're having a wonderful day or a wonderful week. I want to take some time out to talk to you about a topic that is sensitive in the church, but an important one nonetheless, and that's giving, particularly tithing, its purpose and potential in all of our lives. And I know when many of us hear about church and money, we immediately get scared. I assure you there's no building fund pitch coming yet, but I did want to take some time out to talk to you about the importance and value of becoming a generous giver. In another video, I've outlined key points from our Vision Sunday, which will highlight what you're giving to so that you can know exactly where your hard-earned money is going. And in that video, I highlight our goals and what you can expect from us. But in this video, I'd like to just spend a few moments of your time talking about three major areas of giving. The heart of giving, which is why should I give? The principle of giving, what should I give? And the practice of giving, how can I give? Now, that's my intent to honor your time, so I'm going to be concise in this video. But if you have any questions as this video content goes on, just send an email to info@thelifechurchrva.org, and I will respond personally to discuss questions that you may have. So let's start with the heart of giving, right? What does the heart of giver look like? Developing a giver's heart is not exclusive to the church, but it should be the heart of a Christian in general. Like, as believers, we should be generous people and concerned about both the needs of God's kingdom expanding and the needs of those around us being met. So how do I develop a giver's heart? Three things I want you to think about today. First of all, givers aren't guilty, they're grateful. It's not about being guilty, it's about being grateful. In James 1, verses 16 through 17, we see these words. Don't be misled, dear brothers and sisters. Whatever is good and perfect is a gift coming down to us from God our Father. So when we give, we communicate what we believe about all of our blessings, career opportunities, etc., coming from above. We say we believe that God gave us these perfect and wonderful gifts, so we just give back a portion of it. It also communicates our faith, because when we give to God, we're sowing something with belief that He'll provide for our needs. Here's the second thing I want you to think about. You don't just give to the church, you give through the church. I'm going to say that again. You don't just give to the church, you give through the church. In 2 Corinthians 9, we see these words written by Paul to the church in Corinth. Remember this, a farmer who plants only a few seeds will get a small crop, but the one who plants generously will get a generous crop. And you must each decide in your heart how much to give. And don't give reluctantly or in response to pressure, for God loves a person who gives cheerfully, and God will generously provide all that you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. He goes on to say in verse 12, so two good things will result from the ministry of giving. The needs of the believers in Jerusalem will be met, and they will joyfully express their thanksgiving to God. I want you to just think about some of the stories that have happened in this church. When we think about people expressing their thanksgiving to God, being impacted by the ministry of giving, as Paul was talking about in the passage we just read. When I think about what Paul tells us at the end of that passage, I really begin to think about some of the stories that have impacted our lives here at TLC. Like the emails we receive of marriages that have been restored. They said, hey, we were done. We were on the brink of quitting, and then they walked in these doors and said, this church restored our marriage. Or the guy who walked in our church on Easter and said, I hadn't been to church in 33 years. And then the one day I said, I'll give it one more shot. He gave his life to Christ. I think about the family who was a victim of domestic violence that we were able to build a deck for and help finish a fence and do some other restoration projects while also being able to serve those daughters on that day of service. I think about the homeless veterans we've served in our Gift of Hope Week year after year, or the Daily Bread initiative that we just launched, where we're going to be filling 20 bags every week for 20 young people at Bouchard Middle School who they've identified don't have the proper nourishment in their homes. These are the things we're serving. These are the ways that your giving helps us meet the needs of the community abroad. I also think about James chapter 2, another passage that highlights our heart for being a missional community of faith and action. He says in James 2 verse 14, what good is it, dear brothers and sisters, if you say you have faith, but you don't show it by your actions? Can that kind of faith save anyone? Suppose you see a brother or sister who has no food or clothing, and you say goodbye and have a good day, stay warm and eat well, but then you don't give that person any food or clothing. What good does that do? So you see, faith by itself isn't enough unless it produces good deeds, it is dead and useless. Now, someone may argue some people have faith and others have good deeds. But he goes on to say, I will show you my faith by my good deeds. We want you to have that type of heart as a giver, to show our faith by what we do. Here's the last thing. We don't just want something from you, we want something for you. I know a lot of times when we think about the church and all that they talk about when it comes to money, we think, hey, they just want something from me. But if you look at this passage in 2 Corinthians, he say, don't give reluctantly or under pressure, but give with your heart cheerfully. And so we want you to become a generous giver with your heart first. In a society and a culture that conditions us to be selfish and only think about personal gain, we want you to think about how Paul shows us the value of being a generous giver. He also shows us the results of being a generous giver. Check it out. He says, not only will you be blessed for your giving, but he says God will provide for your needs and you will operate in excess, that you will be able to continue to share and serve others with your resources. I want to give you a thought today. Maybe the key to unlocking greater wealth in your life is greater generosity. I promise you this spiritual principle works. I can testify to it in my own life. I'm not a natural giver. I am stingy. I grew up not poor, but I didn't have a lot. And when I had money, I didn't want to give it up. I didn't want to release it. I wanted to hold it for fear of lack, for fear that I needed money. But I want you to think about, what if you could operate without a fear of lack? Knowing that what I need more than the money I have is the God that provides the resources in my life. It's that type of faith, it's that type of freedom, it's that type of favor that we want for you. That freedom and favor to know that God will bless you abundantly, as Paul writes about. And then we want you to think about the principle of giving. So not only the heart of giving, but the principle, which is 10%. God blessed us, so we give back 10%. And this is the critical part you probably never heard a pastor say. 10% is not the end-all be-all, but it should be the starting point. Tithing was a Jewish principle taught at an early age to encourage the understanding of stewardship and financial freedom. So we teach tithing is where you start, but God may call you in certain seasons of your life to give more than 10%, to be unusually generous. But in other seasons, we understand that life happens, and it's hard to be a cheerful giver, right? When you really don't have 10% to give. But 10% is our baseline. And so we want to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, if I'm not giving 10%, where is God's money going? Is it shoes, clothing, eating out? Where? Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy your money, but the principle of giving is we should honor God first. So here's what we encourage here at TLC. Give 10, save 10, and live off of 80. 10% goes to God, 10% goes to your future wealth and family security, and 80% is what you should live off of. Remember, giving is not just about the church. It's about your overall stewardship and stability of life, but we want to honor God first. So we've talked about the heart of a giver and the principle. Now let's talk about the practice of giving. Mark 12:41 through 44 tells us this in the Message translation. Sitting across from Jesus was an offering box, and he was observing a crowd tossing money into the collection. Many were rich, making large contributions. One widow came up and threw in 2 small coins. Jesus called his disciples over and said, the truth is, this widow gave more than all the others together. All that they gave, they'll never miss. But she gave extravagantly what she could not afford. She gave her all. I love this passage because it reminds us that God is less concerned with how much I have and more concerned with the heart of what I have. I promise you, if you put these principles into practice, you'll see others blessed and you'll be blessed in your life. You can put this thing into practice by developing a discipline of giving. Even if you're saying, hey, I'm new to church, I'm not sure about this whole tithing thing, try 6% or 8%, something that says, God, I'm committed to honoring you with my money. You can also discipline your habits with resources like automatic withdrawal to the church or taking money out as soon as you get it as opposed to waiting to the end of the month. Just be consistent, and I promise you, you won't regret it. Remember, this is not about a guilty thing. It's about a grateful thing. If you have further questions about the content of this video, remember, just send us an email to info@thelifechurchrva.org, and I will personally respond to you. I believe with all my heart that the best is yet to come with TLC, but we can't do it without you. That it takes all of us being invested together, because we can do some things alone, but we can do a whole lot together. God bless you, and I look forward to growing with you.